Hello and welcome to this Magnifi 4 webinar. My name is Marc Grenier, Technology Director at Eddyfi. Before we really start the session, I want to give you some advice regarding your webinar session. In the lower left corner of your screen, you've got this window where you can set different options. Use the upper left icon to contact Eddyfi for technical assistance. Use the second icons next to it to watch for general announcement. We also highly recommend you to use your computer audio for the webinar. Click the computer icon to set it to configure it. If you have issue configuring your computer audio, you can always use the phone line and call. The Q&A pane is now started. During the webinar, you can submit your technical questions for the Q&A session at the end. Use the question mark icon to do that. The plus button will be used to add new questions. You can send your questions during the webinar. We will answer some of them at the end, mainly the questions that are generic, and those that are more specific to a customer or an application, we're going to answer them later. But don't hesitate to send your question. We will answer all of them. So we're now ready to start officially this webinar. Here is a summary of the presentation. We're going to first make an overview of the new user interface. I will be doing a tubing inspection demonstration using a conventional eddy current probe. Then I will do a surface inspection with array probe, and we'll come back after that and look at additional new features that have been included in this software to give you an overview of what is in this new version. We'll complete with the Q&A session. So let's start with the Magnifi demonstration. So I will move to Magnifi, and here is what we call the backstage view. This is the first screen that you see when you launch Magnifi for the first time. There's different important sections to look at. First of all, in this general page, you're going to do almost all your operation on data, project, setup, and report creation. So it's a page that you will go very often to prepare an inspection. The first area at the top here tells you which project is currently open and which inspection folder is used. You can see the setup currently in memory, where it was loaded, and if you have a data, you will see it here also. You can see the file name format for the acquisition. You can import or create list for inspection. And in the last section, you're going to manage your report. You have your report name, the profile for the defect table, and options to generate or export the report. You have a summary here of the currently loaded inspection, and this is based on the setup that is loaded. In this backstage view, you have also access to other options that you can fill at any time when you operate Magnifi. There is the acquisition summary, the report summary, a saving page where you can do special action regarding saving setup or saving data. You can consult a material database. You can look at document and open them from here. And you can manage your preferences. And here the preferences are divided in 4 sections: the system, general, display, and analysis preference. When you are in the backstage, you don't see any data. If you want to look at your data, you need to click the Start Resume button or use the upper left corner arrow. So if I click Start Resume, I'm moved in the front stage view where I can see the data area where my data will be displayed. I have the ribbon section. So compared to Magnifi 3.5 before, where you had a bunch of toolbars, here the options and actions available in Magnifi are separated in different ribbons. The home ribbons give you access to most of the function that you will use in a day-to-day basis. You have access to each step of the calibration wizard. Advanced feature can be set in the third ribbon. Everything related to the instrument is in the fourth ribbon. You have one dedicated for calibration, and all kinds of calibration options are available. One ribbon is for analysis mode, and it gives you access to specific function. You can define your layout in this ribbon, and you can change properties of a specific view from the last ribbon. And the properties you change are related to the selected view, where you see this orange square around the view itself. So if I'm going in this view and I decide to change the color, for example, I can do that and change my background color for something that it's blue, and it's going to be blue only for that specific view. So a lot of options are available for each views, and the content of that ribbon depend on the view that you have selected. Options are different for list-view view and for strip chart, C-scan, and voltage plane. You have at the top of your screen some quick access button. They are there to be visible all the time, and you can customize them by clicking the arrow, and from this menu you can add other function that you want to stay on top of the screen all the time. I mentioned this because once you are set, you may want to optimize the view to see to give to the data all the space available on your screen. And you can do that by collapsing the ribbon, and you can also close or make automatically collapsible the data tab. So if I unpin this, I've got almost 100% of my screen available for the data. When I go on a collapsible tab, like the data here, I can see the content of my inspection folder, which is empty at the moment. If I want to keep that tab permanently open, I just have to pin it here. Same thing at the bottom, there is some collapsible tab. The report is one that you may want to look at quite often. So if you want to keep it permanently on screen, you can pin this tab and then readjust the size the way you want it. You don't want the report to be pinned, so you can press again on this icon and it will be automatically collapsible. So that gives you an overview of the new interface. It is very similar in terms of the views compared to the previous version. The main change is related to the ribbon. The data tab has a lot more functionality than before, and we're going to show that during the demonstration. And you have the collapsible tab at the bottom. So let's go back in the backstage view and create a project from the beginning, like if we are doing a new inspection. So I will keep the same project, which I've called webinar for Magnifi 4.2, and I will just add a new inspection to that project. So I click open inspection. I'm in a default inspection at the moment. I will create a new one for my ECT bobbin demo. So I just have to select that inspection, and you can see that the inspection folder has been changed. I need a new setup. I can open my setup or create a new one. Let's first have a look at open setup. When I click open setup, I have access to different options. The first one is loading a recent file that I've used in my previous inspection. So this is very quick to keep using the same setup. I have access to my master list. So this is something that you as a user have the control. So it is all those setup is the content of your folder called document Magnifi setup. So everything that is in this folder will be listed here. Subfolder will be in subsection here, and this is what I have on my computer at the moment. So I can pick up any setup, and typically those setup will be what you were using before with Magnifi 3.5, which are still compatible. The third option is the default master list, and this is a list provided by Eddyfi for you to use with the current software version. They are installed on the installation folder of Magnifi, and when you look at this list, you cannot delete them. They are protected. You can open them and save them into your inspection, but they cannot be removed from Magnifi. Each time a new release is created by Eddyfi, you will have a new set of default master lists that will not affect your own master list. If you don't have the setup in one of those locations, you can always click the browse button and go anywhere on your computer to select a setup. So for the demonstration now, we're going to create a new setup from scratch by using the setup wizard. We select tubing and generic probe, my material, tube dimension. I'm selecting ECT bobbin model and the typical bobbin probe. And I will use almost the default setup, except maybe for the frequency, because my probe is not necessarily optimum for my current tubing. But beside that, I keep using the default setup until this page that I want to describe a little bit. It's a new page to define landmark automatically for you. Normally landmark, we suggest to detect them on the absolute frequency, the lowest frequency of the absolute channel. Once the channel is selected, you decide if the position reported will be from the stop of the recording. So the operator is here, pulling the probe, stopping record here at TS1, so 0 is the start of position, or is it from the record, from where the tubes get in the where the probe gets in the tube. That's the option you have, and by default we assume that you need to detect at least both tube sheet, and we have defined tube sheet 2 as the first one seen by the probe at position 0. Tube sheet 1 is the last one seen by the probe when you pull it, and the position corresponds to the tube length. You can change those names, but just be aware that the name are not linked with the image. This is a static image just for reference. There is one landmark that is optional. It's called exit. It is only used when you work with automatic sequence. It's a new feature that we have implemented to automate the acquisition process, and by default this landmark is disabled, so it will not influence your usual process of data acquisition. But if you want to use it in a sequence, you can come here and activate it. This will not be covered in the current presentation, but addressed in other video later. So beside this, we can keep going in the wizard with all the default setting up to the end, and I select view layout and finish. When you do a tubing wizard, by default the system select for you a file naming that is row column. If you want, you can change that for zone row column, and the correct defect table is selected for you. So I'm going and click start resume to begin. And what I have, which is interesting, is the acquisition summary that is shown automatically for you. to be filled so that the information put there will be with every data file that you record. I'm going to put some value just for the information. Okay, so let's keep with this. Okay, different things to know. Yeah, before going too far, I want to show you where to connect to the instrument. So I was already connected. I will show you now how to do it. So in the instrument ribbon, you have access to connect, or from the quick access toolbar, you have the same connect button. So let's use this one. You see the instrument and you can connect. Now, initially you don't want to acquire data or to save data. You want just to acquire them to do your calibration. So to do that, to make an acquisition without saving, you need to enable the setup mode. This is like in 3.5 when we were in the setup tab. So setup mode is enabled by clicking this button. So now I can null my probe in the tube and start acquiring. So here's my data. On the first time you do a wizard, the layout are not defined for you, so you can quickly change the channel name for what you want to see. So let's put some value. Let's keep, yeah, like this. I'm gonna zoom in. So the mouse functions is exactly the same as in 3.5. There's nothing new to learn here. So once your CalTube is acquired, you can go and proceed for the calibration. You can go in the calibration tab and select system calibration, or use it from the quick access toolbar. I will do channel and sizing curve at the same time. So this is my 20% flaw. Move to the 40. I will not measure the landmark at this step because I will use the landmark from a real tube with a tube sheet. Sorry, I did 40, 20, 40, okay, 60, measure, 80, measure, hole, and my ID groove to complete and calibrate. So everything has been set correctly. My hole is at 40 degree 1 volts. My sizing curve are set. So I'm ready to save my first CalTube. So I can do that by clicking Save Calibration As here. So a name is suggested for me that is called -11 for the first calibration. So I can click OK. At the same time, it is recommended to save the setup in the inspection folder. This is an option. If you see that message coming, you have to put a name here to make sure that the system will not ask you at every file you save. This is a preference that you can set to ask for saving setup when you save a data for the first time. So if you have this default option, you need to put a setup name here, so it's going to be in your folder. Now I can prepare my tube list by going into the backstage again, and I can create a list from this button. I can define, let's say, quickly 3 rows and say I have 3 tube here, 4 tube here, and 3 in the last row, and create it. So when I go back, I have already a list of tube created. I could also come on a specific name here and click the plus button to create a new tube. Now it has the row number 4 and column number 3. I can edit the number back to 1, and then from here I can change which row or column I'm incrementing, and now I can add more column to it. So it could be done manually or more automatically. When I'm ready, I can go in the tube I want to inspect. That's what I'm going to do. So I will disable the setup mode and just start acquiring my data file. So after the first tube, I can calibrate my landmark. This could be done easily by changing the channel name in one of the strip chart for the landmark channel and measuring each entry and exit signal. So I can open the system calibration, select the landmark, measure TS2, the first one, and then TS1, and hit calibrate. So now my landmark are set, and I can keep doing my inspection by pressing F2 and doing the acquisition. So I'm going to just collect few tube just for the example here. And sorry, I stopped my tube too early, so that's why I didn't pick up the landmark. I'm doing another one. F2. At any time, if we find a tube that is plugged, we can do a right click on the file name, set a feature for it, and then move to the second one, acquire. We can review some file as we go and tag them for review with the letter T. So that will put a symbol in front of the file. And we can also define tube as NDD if we want. So if I press N, the file is NDD and the second one is automatically started. And I can keep going this way, doing all the tube exchanger that I have selected. F2. So when we do analysis, there is no different mode. We always stay in the same data tab, except that we can disconnect from the instrument and then read back any file and select something to be reviewed. Here, if there is no defect in my tube, so just for the exercise, I will make a manual measurement at a fake angle like this, and I will report this as a corrosion. So a defect is added to my report, a screenshot is taken, and the status in front of the file has changed for an analysis icon. So each file that has been analyzed has this orange check mark if they have a defect, and if they have an NDD, they will have the green check mark. So if I load the next one and if I load one and make it NDD, it's going to have the check mark green and load the next file automatically. And I can keep adding defect to my report. So all the time I can see the status, how many tube I have inspected, what has not been analyzed yet. So it's very useful. At the end, when a report, when all the file has been analyzed and all the indication has been reported in the table, we can go back in the backstage view and generate the report. For tubing inspection, we can select the table format. We can even select a picture of the heat exchanger that we may have taken at the beginning. And select different section. We need as well to define the number of tube in the component, and we can complete the report summary, and the report is generated with multiple pages including a summary, the setting of the instrument, the component information, the statistics on the inspection coming from the report, and as well as the defect table and the screen capture that you have taken related to each report entry. You can print that report or save it into different format like Word, Excel, or PDF to reuse it later. So that concludes the tubing demo. It has been quite long because we use it to show the interface at the same time. Now we're going to move quickly to a surface array inspection and start by creating a new inspection folder. So here I will add a setup for the iFlex. And I will create a wizard. So tubing surface, selecting the iFlex probe. This is automatically selected if you are connected to an instrument because the probe will be detected automatically. So I'm keep using the default setting with an encoded scan, just defining the resolution of the encoder. And then I'm selecting the impedance mode for the iFlex. I will not put any processing for now, just keep using the default setup. And setting up, instead of showing the entire length of the C-scan, I'm going to show up a specific length, so I will have a better view on the data while I'm scanning. And selecting two layout, one with 3D and one conventional. So setup is created. I will define my file naming as a prefix, and I will put the name data, and there will be a counter to increment my data file. So let's start and resume. I'm asked for my summary, so it's a different component. It's a plate, let's say plate ABC. Still same site and service provider, so that my acquisition summary is okay. I can connect to the instrument. By doing so, the system will recognize the probe and bring me back automatically to the backstage normally. If not, I can always go back and see that the probe is detected at the moment. My first step is to null the probe. So I'm going to use the null icon. Then I can start acquiring the calibration notch. Stop. So I can do the calibration. So basically I'm selecting the notch here that is seen by all the channel, and I open up the system calibration from the calibration ribbon here or from the system calibration. I'm selecting the notch, measuring it, and calibrate. I can close that. So I have a lot of contrast on my color palette, so I can double click on the color bar here to open up the color palette and change the color palette by itself. So I'm going to go, since it's an absolute signal, select traffic light absolute and put a much different scale. So let's go for 2 volts here, and let's put that to minus 0.5. So now I have a much more interesting scale for my view. I can click OK. And from here, if I want, I can also add low pass and high pass filtering. If I know that my defect is going to be short, I can go in the wizard and in the process section, come here and add the low pass and high pass filter. Those are set depending on the length of defect you want to cut. So if you're looking for a very short defect, you can make the high pass filter smaller. Typically we're going to make it 3 times longer than the defect you want to keep. So if you want to keep defect 20 millimeter in length, you can place that at 60 and click finish. It's normal that when you do that, the data is erased and you need to collect a new data file. So I'm gonna start again with F2 and make my scan over the notch and then over some other flaw. I'm gonna stop. So here is my data, calibrated and filter. And if I'm happy with my calibration, I can save it as a cal tube. So I can either come into calibration menu and save the cal. There is always the possibility to save data with the counter naming. That's going to be data 001. Or because it's a cal, I can make a save data as, and then I will specify the exact name I want. So let's call this as cal-11001 and save it. The system again will ask me if I want to save the setup because it's looking for a setup in the inspection folder. So let's call that acquisition setup and save it. So the file is stored here under cal-001, and because I use a prefix name, it has been changed for the next one. So if I want to use different prefix for my normal data file, I need to go back here and make sure I put back data as my prefix. And now if I start a data file again by F2, so I'm in setup mode, so no data is recorded in real time. I can acquire, stop, and if I'm happy with the data, now I can click save data, and this will take the format that has been planned for my data file. So I can save data, and now it's data 1. And I can keep going like this in a mode called acquire and save. So it's only saving if I ask for it. So I can press F2, and again if I do save, it's going to save it under data number 2, and I can keep going this way. If I want for surface inspection, we can also use the list mode, so we can add predefined file to be recorded. So if I press the plus button, it's adding file to be recorded. And if I disable the setup mode, now when I'm going to press start, it's going to automatically save under that file name. And F2. And now after that, we're ready to do next and record the next file under data number 4. So we can have a process of acquiring data automatically, saving them into the folder, or we can save it on demand by keeping the setup mode enabled and clicking save only when I want it. The data file will get populated, and if report is made, someone can come here, select a file, change the measurement mode. Let's say this is an average peak measurement for the phase, and enter report entry if any reporting has been defined and if sizing curve has been defined. If there is no sizing curve, only the code will be added for that specific file. A box is added on the C-scan, and we can see the report entry that has been defined. Of course, if a sizing curve is defined, the depth will be entered here. So that concludes the surface array demonstration. One thing I forgot to show is we defined different layout, or we selected different layout, so we can go in the layout menu and switch to the other layout, which was with the 3D view. And from here, I can select the data I want to see, the component, and I can rotate this using the control key and make it exactly the way I want to see it. If I want to change the aspect ratio, the orientation, or the zoom, I can go in the current view and change manually the scaling, for example. To get things bigger, I can add a grid to it. So from the current view, we can define how it's going to look. Any modification to the layout, you will be able to do them from the layout menu. You can split your layout, you can replace view with different views, and you can create new one from scratch. So it's at this place that you will adapt the display the way you want it. Now the last portion of this webinar is to show you a few additional new features. So I'm gonna go quick on this because there's a lot, and there will be other video in the coming weeks to describe all of them. But if we make a quick overview, one thing I want to show is a quick way of opening project, and this is very useful because in the previous version it was tough to get all reporting data files, screenshots synchronized, and here there's a quick way of doing that by just opening a data file. And how we do that, we click open, browse, and from here we just have to select any folder where you have data file. So I can go into some inspection data that I have and just click on them, even if it's the old format from the previous version of Magnifi, and open. When I'm doing this, the system is gonna open the setup, open the inspection, or for me to open setup if there is any setup in the inspection folder, and automatically display the data. If I go back to the backstage, I can see that the project folder has been changed, the inspection also, the file format and the report name, everything has moved and follow the inspection that I have. So one file opening will synchronize everything. So that's one thing. Another function is in the preferences. A lot of people ask us to be able to program the keyboard shortcut, so you can get that from the system preference, and you can define which key will do the different actions. For example, if I look at the no indication or no defect detected, right now it's the letter N. If I want to have it to be W, I just have to press W, and that's going to be my new shortcut. So very simple to assign differently the shortcut keyboard. Another new function is the calibration shortcut. So again, if you often have to do a specific calibration, like on a baffle or the calibration of the hole, for example, you want to automate that, there is a simple way of creating a new shortcut, and that way is to go into the calibration ribbon, and you can select the auto calibration here, and this menu will open a dialog where you can add new calibration shortcut. So you can select if it's a shortcut for the channel calibration or the C-scan, and if it's the C-scan, for example, you're gonna have access to all your calibration point for C-scan. If I select hole and here I put H, every time I will press the H shortcut, the system will do the whole calibration. So I just have to select the hole and press H, and it will be calibrated. We can define that kind of shortcut for any type of calibration that we have in the setup. Another quick things that we have is to review sizing curve while we are online. So in the calibration menu again, we can look at the curve and see if there is any problem. Like here, this curve is not valid. I can look at some other that are good, and I can look at the profile of the curve, change them, change the value on the fly, and I can still move my data and select my data when I'm doing this. Another thing that is quite useful is the tag for review. So if you are not sure of some analysis call, you can press T to tag a file for review, and you can do that for several of your file. And later on, if someone else wants to review your analysis, they can filter the data based on what has been tagged. So at the bottom here, there is a filter possibility to show different information, but also to show only the tag file. So if I'm doing that, if there is a lot of tube in my folder, I can quickly go to the interesting one and review only those ones. When a report entry is made for a tube that is tagged, automatically the tag is removed. So if I make this one as NDD, it's removed from the list and the next one is open. So very quickly looking at only specific file. So that's about the new feature I wanted to describe. So we will move to the Q&A session. There is already a lot of questions that has been received during the webinar. The time goes faster than I expected, so I will just answer a few of them, and all the other one will be answered by email, and don't worry, we will answer all the questions. Okay, first question coming often is about compatibility. Can I read my previously recorded data and setup? The answer is yes. We are compatible with all the previously recorded data with Ectane, and the setup also. Everything will look and be displayed the same way as it was in Magnifi 3.5. The only exception is about a specific view. The Polar and the Polar 3D views are not yet supported. That will come in the future. Is there an upgrade price to get Magnifi 4? The answer is yes. The amount is not big, but we are asking for an upgrade because this is a major milestone for the company, and we are committed now to provide 2 releases per year, listen to you, and have the function that you want. So there is an upgrade price. Contact your sales representative to get more detail. In the meantime, you can request a trial version on the website. It's going to be valid for 30 days, and we will send you a license for that. Another questions coming is the compatibility with Windows 10. So the software has been tested on Windows 7 and 8 and 10. It's compatible with the 3 OS. We are not officially supporting Windows XP anymore. The software might work, but if there is any bug, it's not something that we're going to support. So the official OS supported is Windows 7, 8, and 10. We have time for last questions. Some people asking about the Shark. There is a lot of feature in Magnifi Go and the Ready for the Shark, and people are asking if we have the same in Magnifi. And yes, now Ready and Magnifi on the desktop, they are on the same platform and follow the same capability. So you can, with Magnifi 4, a full version, you can read your data from the Ready, and you can have access to all the feature that is available with the new Shark probe and the Tika technology. So that concludes the Q&A session. We will answer the other question by email. Thanks a lot for your attention, and stay tuned for new updates on the website regarding videos and more information about Magnifi 4. Thanks again. Bye-bye.